so now we're here, we're ready to put down some finish. But there's some things we got to talk about beforehand, really as far as what our pre-game plan was and what was our setup. So this is a great time to again go over your commandments list and see if there's anything that relates to this job. So good time to pull out the commandments. Most of the stuff that we've got laid out here though is all about keeping it clean, right? Getting the floor clean, so we put our sealer on, we abraded it, we went back and properly vacuumed it, we tacked it, we went around the edges with our crevice tool to make sure that any dust bunnies and stuff that were hiding either under the trim work or the quarter round or whatever, that we were able to get all of that out of there, because once we start putting down finish is the time when that kind of stuff tends to jump out. So keeping it clean, even if it's the walls themselves and we got to brush some of the walls down or window ledges because we got dust and stuff up there, then the round brush on the back vac tends to work real well. If we've used diamonds to abrade the floor, typically we'll go back then with the Tampico brush to clean that off, because it really gets all that diamond dust tends to stick to the surface of the sealer and or finish if we're doing that in between coats. And the soft bristles really tend to break up that diamond dust, make it easy to get back into the back vac and give us a really nice clean surface in order to put our finish back down over the top. Because that's the key, we want to keep everything clean. If we can do that, we can put down successive finish coats, not come back and abrade it, at least not for adhesion, only for smoothness. But there's some other things we can do between coats there too. We're going to put down, walk-off mats or towels at our entrance points so we can wipe our feet off. We're going to have plenty of towels with us. We'll also, at our exit point, have, either a bucket or a paint tray in order to put excess finish or just our applicators as we come off the floor into those. I'm also going to have a brush along with my applicators if we've got bull nose or some detail areas that I can't hit with the cut-in pad, or my roller or my T-bar or whatever I'm using as my main applicator. I like to have a little brush along with me just to get into some small detail areas as well. We're also going to want to take our initial moisture reading with our dual depth meter, right? So this will tell us what the surface moisture is, or if it doesn't detect surface moisture, then it goes down further and gives us a little deeper reading. But we want that base reading before we ever put finish down on the floor or sealer, just to know what our reading is that we've got to get back to within 1 or 2 points to put another coat down. Safety equipment. So one, typically we would recommend wearing a respirator, an organic vapor cartridge respirator. Even though they're water-based finishes and they're quote-unquote safer for you than solvent-based finishes, it's still chemicals and still things that you're breathing in. So it's safest for all of this, and it's definitely recommended on the label to go ahead and wear a respirator. I also like to wear gloves. I don't like getting the finish all over my fingers. Not that it's necessarily bad, but again, they're chemicals, and I just don't like peeling all the finish off all the time. Another thing you may want to do to keep things clean, you may have your own coating shoes or boots or slippers, but you may also want to put some booties on. So you can buy these, they're just surgical booties. They keep everything nice and clean. It's just a nice little extra, especially for really high-end homes or commercial work or wherever, where you really want to make sure that you keep everything clean. You could also coat in your socks, which is what I typically like to do. One, because I like to know when I've stepped in the finish, and you can't do that with shoes or anything else on. But make sure you bring clean, dry socks to change into. You don't want to take off your work shoes or boots. Have your wet, clammy socks that you've been wearing all day to coat in. So just bring some clean socks and change into those. We'll also use our pantyhose along with our medium filter to create a fine filtering system for our finish. And then with our applicators, what we did with those is we cleaned them off as much as we could. We checked them, especially if they've been in storage, make sure they weren't stinky, getting moldy or mildewy. They were fine, so just continued to rinse them off again. And then just took a rag and dried them to just damp. When we're using finishes that are satin, matte, extra matte, I don't want any excess water in my applicators, because if I do, I'm going to tend to get shiny spots where I first start putting that finish down. It'll work its way out, but I don't want to start that way. So again, just barely even damp, dry them down to that point. And then airflow, right? If we've got in-air vents, I want to shut off my HVAC. If I've got vents in the floor, I can put a foam block in there that will nicely conform to that area, block everything out in there. First, I also want to take my back vac though, vacuum out those vents. And then after we've got the finish down and it's flowed and leveled for 20 or 30 minutes, now I might want to increase my airflow. So then I'm going to kick the HVAC system back on, but I may also place some box fans around the room or around the house just to increase that airflow. Again, it'll help speed things up, especially if I'm trying to get more than 2 coats of finish on per day. Just help speed up that dry cure time. But I want to make sure I give it that 20 or 30 minutes to flow, level, defoam before I go ahead and put any extra airflow over the top. And then we're still going to tack it. We're always going to tack, but we'll want to go around and tack the floor as well as our final cleaning method, just to make sure that we've got as much of the dust and debris and stuff off the floor as possible before we start pouring finish. So you can see that's our kind of our pre-setup. It's all about getting the floor clean, keeping the floor clean, getting ourselves, the rest of the job site clean, taking care of airflow, setting up our applicators, getting ready for personal protective equipment. A lot of stuff to do before finish ever starts coming out of that jug.